All right, so it's about 20 of 7, so I just want to, let's get everything started. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is going to be the third and final forum for our downtown redesign project for Main Street and Front Street. This actually, believe it or not, it's hard to believe, it's been a year-long process. We actually started this September of 2017. We had a great group here, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, and there was a lot of excitement, not just for downtown and the direction that downtown was going, but also just the direction that Ashland was going in. And I think at that meeting and also at previous meetings, I've challenged us to really start thinking about what we can do to invest in ourselves, to in turn get the private sector to invest in us as well. Because you know, it's very easy for towns and communities to sit on the sidelines and say, well, why can't we get more business? Why can't we, you know, have nice things like this? Why can't we have a nice downtown? But the thing is just like with anything else in life, at an individual level, individual capacity, group, team, community level, you know, you have to be willing to make investments in yourself and pay the price yourself to in turn get the results that you want. And I'm happy to say that over the last year, we've seen results coming up from the things that we've been doing in Ashland. So just downtown, since we've had our first forum in September of 2017, we've seen 128 Main Street be proposed in downtown. It's a mixed-use development of 13 units with 2,200 square feet of commercial space. The bagel table is going to open imminently, I promise. I promise. It'll probably be here before you know it. I got a feeling they're just going to surprise us. But that's one of those things. I actually looked at my previous remarks, and one of the things I mentioned specifically was the fact that the town consistently talks about having a coffee and bagel place, and lo and behold, we do the things that we need to do and do the things that we're doing, and it happens. 100 Main Street, across the street from Town Hall. Many of you that are on my Facebook page, you see the updates going on with that and what's happening in that renovation. And last but not least, 40 Cherry Street. Isabel Perez and David Butanis, two locals in town, have recently purchased 40 Cherry Street and are proposing turning the space in the back to a brewery. It's another thing I mentioned specifically in September. Lo and behold, here it is. It's happening. And again, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but I want to bring it back to the fact that we've given signals and we've made it a commitment to invest in ourselves and do the things that we need to do to make ourselves attractive as a community in terms of investment. So again, I think we should look back on that and be proud of the work that we've done so far, but then also acknowledge the fact that we still got a long ways to go. And so that's where tonight comes in. Tonight is the culmination of a year-long process of taking public input. Bill Paley and Jeff Vassar from BSC Group will run through briefly what kind of public input we received, but I think you'll see that it's been extensive. Trying to gather everybody's idea of what a good downtown looks like and what that is going to shape out to be. And we've had to make a few compromises, and I think we've had to weigh certain benefits of one thing versus another. But I think what has emerged has been something that holistically is very, very impressive. And I think you'll be impressed with it too. I'll let them go through the specifics and everything. We'll also talk about next steps afterwards as well. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jeff Vassar from BSC Group, who's going to lead us through the agenda for the evening. Thanks.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting applause, but I'll take it. Oh, it was free. Yeah, I shouldn't have assumed. Are they applauding to get you off the stage or applauding? Okay. Again, thank you all for coming. I know I've seen a lot of faces that have been here at the previous meetings, and thanks for coming out again. What we're going to do tonight, Mike kind of referred to this, quick overview of the goals of this project and the project limits. I know many of you have been to previous meetings, maybe all of you, but just a reminder of what those were. And talk about what we've done for community engagement, and that's the information that we have taken. This is your plan that is built upon a lot of the input we got at meetings like this. Presentation of the preferred materials, that's what's kind of above ground, benches, et cetera. And then the preferred option for improvements to the sidewalks, to crosswalks, to the roadway, and then talk about next steps. So to start with, just a reminder of the limits of the project and our goals. So it's primarily Main Street and Front Street, and I'm going to step away from the mic for a minute. So Main in front, Main going from Water Street through downtown down to the Summer Homer intersection, and then Front Street from Main Street heading out of town past Ashland Lumber. And the goals for the project that we started with were very good and kind of straight and to the point, which made everything a little easier for us to focus on. One was to create an attractive and welcoming downtown. It's welcoming for residents, welcoming for visitors, people who may be using MBTA to draw people into downtown. And also to draw investment into the downtown area. That could be businesses, but also could be residential units, which we're seeing already, have seen, and we're going to be seeing more of that. Create a safe and accessible downtown. And when we say accessible, that means accessible for pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles, any mode of transportation in the downtown area. Improve traffic flow, as that really does focus more on the vehicles. Maintain the historic character. This was very important to us because it's not just a matter of how we're moving people and vehicles through downtown and what downtown's going to look like, but it's making that unique to Ashland, building off of your current character, your architecture, your style, what makes Ashland Ashland. And another thing that was a very important part of the project was looking at options for undergrounding all the utility wires. So putting those below grade, getting rid of all the utility poles, really would help with the aesthetics of downtown. We're still working on that, which we'll go through in a minute because that's an expensive proposition, but it's a very important proposition to consider when you're looking at a project like this. So again, a quick recap of the community engagement. Town has a great website, which includes a co-urbanized element or page on it, which has provided an opportunity for anybody to go to that co-urbanized website and give us comments about the downtown area and ideas on what they'd like to see, where particular issues are. So we got input through that, which was very helpful. We had a first community workshop, which Mike mentioned, it was about a year ago in this room, and we talked about the project and then broke people up to kind of workstations, different tables set up where we asked specific questions and just opened it up for brainstorming and different ideas. Early this year, because of the undergrounding of the utility part of the project, BSC and basically town staff started to meet with the utility companies to understand what would be involved with that process, what would they be looking for from the town, what would the town be looking for from them to start that dialogue. We then had a second community workshop, again in this building, in March of 2018, where we had more specific recommendations and got people's reaction to those recommendations for the design of improvement, the physical design of sidewalks and the roadways, et cetera, but also more input on the different materials to use downtown, and also priorities. And then most recently, the town and BSC again have met with the utility companies to get more focused on what's it going to take to put the wires below grade. And that dialogue continues. So one of the things, I'm a landscape architect, Bill Paley's a traffic and civil engineer, and one of the things I focused on was what are we going to use for surface treatments in the area? Let's call it streetscape elements. So we're going to walk through those, and again, people who came before, you may remember we had some visual boards up with pictures of different types of treatment, and people voted on what they thought they'd like to see in the downtown area. And then also this ties into the historic character that people feel important, that's important to retain. So first we're going to talk about surface treatments, the pavement, and there are some medians or center islands downtown now, and there's going to be a couple more, and how do we treat those? And quite honestly, there was a back and forth about, It'd be nice to have more greenery and vegetation downtown, but I was also, even though I'm a landscape architect, I was pushing back saying, but if we're gonna plant anything, we've gotta make sure it's gonna be healthy. So in many of the areas, we have settled on this treatment, which is a raised curb on both sides, what we call hardscape, hard pavement in the middle. This particular one looks like cobbles. And then if you want to add greenery, it will be done with planters on top of these. That way, if it becomes difficult to maintain or the health doesn't keep up, you can take the planters off and still have an attractive looking island. Crosswalks are very important. What we've settled on, again, working with the town, especially with DPW, is something that they're going to be able to maintain fairly easily, but also draw more attention to the crosswalks. So it's this type of treatment here where we have what we call the ladder on both sides, that strong white line on both sides. That alerts the motorist that this is a crosswalk. But between those white lines, go with what's called, it's basically a resin that has color all the way through it, and there's a particular pattern that's stamped into it. This one's showing a brick pattern and a brick color on that, which was what most people were drawn to. There are a couple options on this, but we're headed in this direction. And with that thickness of that material and with the color going all the way through, the color will last for quite a while. Again, trying to help with DPW, and they don't need to get out there and paint things to keep this color, for example. On the sidewalks themselves, there was certainly interest on Main Street having the sidewalks be wide as we could. Obviously, you have to work within the property lines, but having wider areas where businesses could spill out onto the sidewalks with cafes or outdoor displays, places for people to gather. And on the walking surface itself, it's going to be concrete, and in some areas, between the sidewalk and the roadway, there'll be plant beds with curbs around them, like you're seeing here. And in other areas, there'll be certainly the same thing, concrete sidewalks, but there'll be a brick band there. So between the sidewalk and the back of the curb, or between the sidewalk and the roadway. We call that brick band an amenity strip. So one, it's a pavement treatment that looks like brick and gives some interest to the edge of the street. It also provides a space where we can then put in planters, we can put in trees where things are wide enough, we can put in light poles, trash receptacles, things like that, and not interrupt the flow of the traffic, pedestrian traffic, which will be on the concrete areas of the sidewalk. Site furnishings. We looked at a number of different bench options and settled on this one here, which is a combination of a metal frame in black and then wood for the seat and the back and the armrests. Wood tends to be more comfortable and enjoyable to sit on. There'll be bike racks where we can put them in. We want to encourage bicyclists downtown. Again, a black metal color for that to work with the benches. Lights. This particular style here was what was preferred, again, building on that historic character. And then also, people should know that within these lights, and most lights on the market today for use along streets, there are ways to direct where the light goes. So if this light is in front of a residential building, the light can be cast away from the building, so it's not going into windows. If it's a walking area, the light can be cast down so that it's very clear and safe where people are walking. Light can be cast onto the roadway for driver safety. We're not letting the light go up into the air. It's called dark skies. We don't want light pollution here. So we're able to direct where the light goes with this fixture. More site furnishings, trash receptacles where they're needed. Again, kind of building off the style of the benches. And then planters, there's a lot of variation on these, but again, kind of building on that look of kind of black metal. And then in some areas, we're going to need bollards, and some of them may be bollards with chains between them to help really focus where pedestrians should be walking. And in other areas, they're just simple bollards to help protect where pedestrian space from vehicular space. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bill. He's going to talk about the layout of all these elements along this corridor. Whatever you'd like.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, folks. So I want to take a few minutes and take you through some of the roadway options and, that we're looking at. So this is, we need somebody to, I could go back and forth.
No, I agreed to do it, and then
Right, we talked about that. So this is, we're on Main Street, we're going to focus on the three major intersections, all our existing signalized intersections. Some of the issues that came up was pedestrian safety, access, signal timing, the look, crossing, distance, things of that nature. So this is the intersection of Pleasant Street, tying into the recently approved bike plan. There are going to be bike lanes that will be coming up Pleasant Street into the downtown area. And so we discussed this, and the downtown is really going to be the destination. So you'll notice on this plan, you've got the same turn lanes. We've made them more efficient. They'll be 10, 11 feet wide. But we're showing sharrows, a shared use on Main Street. And the reason being, all the streets leading into Main Street are leading to a destination. We want the downtown to be the destination. So along Main Street, there'll be a shared use for bicyclists along Main Street. So that's where we've settled. So some of the improvements on the sidewalks, obviously just went through some of these options. It'll be shown on both sides, but mainly the geometry is going to change at this intersection. There's a long crosswalk right now, so that'll be shortened up by bumping the pavement out, making the lanes more consistently, a consistent width. And what that does is it allows more space, let's say at the corner spot. You're going to be able to enhance that area with green space, benches, and lighting, and make it really truly look attractive and welcoming. And that's what we want to do. This is a gateway to the town. And then a number of places along the corridor, you'll be able to, we'll have benches and other features. Yeah, so the walks will vary in width, pretty much 6 to 8 feet on the north side, up by 30 to 50 Main Street. By eliminating the bike lane from this option, we were able to take that width and give it to the shop side of the sidewalk. So now we're looking at a 10 or longer or wider sidewalk in front of the shops. Now I want to also just let you know that that's 10 feet to the building, to the awning. So in some places it's going to be 12, 13 feet wide. So this is just public way, just to give you an idea. Right, so we're kind of tracking parking, so there's about 5 spaces between Water Street and Pleasant Street, so we're not losing any parking between Water and Pleasant Street. So let's go to the next slide. So this is just a rendering. We've had a couple renderings at the last workshop. We've made these look more according to what the plan is showing. So you'll see that we're retaining the parking. This is the curb extension with the Federated Church on one side looking down toward Water Street. And you can see the wider sidewalks, that brick banding, that the streetlight feature. But the curb extension does shorten up that distance for pedestrians. So it's a non-signalized crosswalk at this point. But with the lane being more consistent, 10, 11 feet, and that curb extension, it does 2 things. It slows traffic down at that crossing, and it makes pedestrians more visible. It'll be lit at night, and then also it allows for other enhancements like landscaping within the bump out using those raised medians. So the next intersection, Front Street, similar. We're able to give it a bit of a makeover, if you will, and make the lanes more consistent, but still allow trucks to make that turn, but they make that turn slowly from Front Street onto Main Street. So right now it's a raceway, so it's very uncomfortable to be on the corner of Santander Bank. So now there's more space there, pedestrians are more visible, and it's just more comfortable and safe for everyone to use that intersection. And we're not impeding traffic. So traffic can still take that right turn, and the signals will be upgraded to be less, will be more attractive, but more efficient and coordinated with each other. So they'll have the countdown timers and the push buttons, and they'll be more attractive and welcoming and usable. So also the left turns are still there, the through lanes are still there. The median on Front Street will be that raised curb with that hardscape that Jeff mentioned. And then also the median in front of Stones will also be a raised curb. We're going to narrow it up a little bit more to where it needs to be and not so wide. And we're giving that width back to the lane and to the sidewalk on the business side and the sidewalk on the town land side. Lots of options here, benches. I mentioned the curbed island. You'd still be able to get a planter on that island, we believe. It could be seasonal or it could be out there all the time. And then you get that brick banding you're gonna see that throughout the corridor. So parking, if the bottom left, the existing total from Pleasant to Front is about 16 spaces, and these are spaces that are actually marked, signed, or striped, and not on the corner of a driveway. And then, so we're proposing, you can get about 19, so we've gained 3 in that stretch. Overall, we're still at 3, so we haven't lost any parking, which is great. So the last major intersection, Summer and Homer, lots of challenges there, but again, it's made some geometry changes, enhanced that curved island as you come off of Homer, shorten up the distances, provide areas where pedestrians can stand if they're in between cycles, and kept the lane configuration, but really enhanced it, and also widened the sidewalk on the Homer side 10 feet now, whereas right now it's probably 6. So there's more opportunities for benches, planters, trash barrels, whatever that we decide that the town needs. And we haven't really lost any parking either, so overall it's a 2 parking stall gain, but essentially we haven't lost anything. And again, each intersection will be lit with those decorative lights, so you'll have lots of light at nighttime, at dusk, and the sidewalk in front of the post office stays the same. So Front Street, again, it's the geometry at Main Street's been enhanced. We're maintaining the driveways. We're maintaining, it's not really clear in this, but the head-in parking to Sunnyside and those shops still remain as part of this plan at the moment. And, but we're making some changes, and access to the Needham Bank is maintained as well. We're actually able to achieve a 9-foot walk on the Sunnyside of the street. And on the Needham Bank side, again, it's an 8.5, 8-foot walk, but it's tremendous to be able to have that. And there's no parking really from Main to Concord. But at Concord, we're adding ADA compliant ramps and having a defined crosswalk, so folks there's a definite place to cross, and it doesn't impede business or access to the businesses. You'll see on the right side of this where the library is. So right now there's 4 spaces in front of the library that have been blocked off, and the reason why they've been blocked off is because when cars park there and you're trying to cross a street, pedestrians get stuck between cars, and so it's a dangerous situation. By incorporating a curb extension, we're able to bring those parking stalls back. So we've gained those spots back safely, which is a tremendous asset to Front Street. Again, it's lots of opportunities for amenities and features that would be needed as part of this corridor. This is just a view from Concord. So Concord is on your left, looking down toward the market. And again, that brick banding, the crosswalk, ADA compliance, still have access to the bank. And then hit the next one there. So this is another step forward, looking at the new curb extension at the library. And so now you shorten up the distance, it's visible, folks feel comfortable coming from either the municipal lot or parking on the street to get to the library and back. It's a great advantage. So the section from the library down to the market, well, what should I say? So we're maintaining a 7-foot walk on the library side, still maintaining the width to all those residents and to Ashland Lumber. It's not really shown here, but the sidewalks aren't going to undulate. It's going to be one consistent walk down the street with driveways flush with the sidewalk, and then they transition down to Front Street. So it'll be a nice, comfortable walk, and it'll be ADA compliant and still allow people to get into their driveways and to get into Ashland Lumber and move around. On the opposite side of the street, all that head-in parking, there's probably 41 stalls plus 2 handicap stalls. A lot of pedestrian activity during the farmers market. What we've done is basically those stalls are too deep right now, so it's probably 25, 26 feet deep. So what we've done is incorporated a 6-foot walk and pushed the cars closer to the street so there's plenty of room for them to park, head in, and plenty of room for people to get out of their car and walk in front of the vehicles as opposed to walking behind them. So we've eliminated a hazard. So we've maintained the 2 handicap spots at the far left of the parking, but we've incorporated the opportunity to incorporate a curb extension somewhere in the center so that folks can cross from the opposite side of the street to the farmers market. And they're visible, the distance is shortened up a little bit. It doesn't have to be there, it could be somewhere else, but that we can worry about at another time. And what that does is it does impact parking slightly, 2 or 3 spots, but we can work that out in the final design. And again, this provides opportunities for bike racks or trash barrels but you still have that brick banding. The crosswalks will still have that same look. You'll still have ornamental street lighting along this section. Lots of opportunities. And with the sidewalk being just slightly wider, you'll be able to enhance this corridor.
Would you mind going back to the Main Street, Front Street intersection? Just the overhead. Thanks, Bill. I just wanted to, it's really easy when we start talking about the technicalities and get in the boxes and the circles and putting them on the pieces of paper that we kind of lose some of what we're trying to accomplish here and some of the bigger picture. And I just kind of wanted to go through with that, or go through this with that eye, that 30,000 foot level. So one of the things, and I apologize, I do have a cold, but I think one of the issues that a lot of people would say if you ask them what can be improved about our downtown is that there could be more consistency, whether it's in the architecture or in the treatments or things like that. And that's really one of the things that we're trying to accomplish here. So you'll see that that's why we have that brick type banding in the amenity strip in the sidewalk, but then we're also utilizing that same kind of concept and that same kind of idea with the crosswalks as well. Another thing that's really, really important to us is that we want to keep flexibility. So you don't see a lot of, you don't see a lot, like Jeff and Bill said, you don't necessarily see a lot of in-place greenery or vegetation, but this gives us the opportunity to utilize vegetation if we want to or not. So it gives us that kind of flexibility. We can change it through the seasons. I know Doug would really love to have his guys out there changing planters every other month, right, Doug? There you go. But I'm also hoping that when we're looking at the private side, the private investment, and when our planning board are approving projects, that they can also incorporate some of these elements like the brick and the color scheme and things like that into the projects, like 128 Main, for example. So it's just my lobby for that. But also, we also talked, there was a lot of discussion about bike lanes versus wider sidewalks. And Bill addressed that a little bit, but I think one of the things that we thought about was from a safety perspective, and the fact that on Main Street, there's going to be a lot of traffic calming measures. You'll see those bump outs. You'll see the narrow lanes, which are actually going to improve traffic. It might sound counterintuitive. You make lanes narrower. it would seem like it would constrict traffic more. It actually helps facilitate movement more, and it's a lot more safer. But on these exterior or like collector type of roads, like Front Street, Summer Street, Pleasant Street, Homer, those can turn into speedways. So that's why we wanted to have bike lanes on those collector streets and then funneling into a Sharrow on Main Street. So we're able to utilize the benefits of a wider sidewalk there versus utilizing some of that for a bike lane as well. So I just kind of wanted to go through and talk about the design a little bit from, again, that 30,000-foot level. One of the things that we didn't talk about is some of the ideas that we had in terms of lighting. So we talk about the lighting, the light posts, the historical light posts, but other stuff we're thinking about is utilizing uplighting in strategic places in town. So if you see a lot of the new signs, what we call affectionately the tombstones, that say Town Hall or Ashland Historical Society. So try to imagine what that would look like at night when you're driving by and there's like an uplight shining up through that. I think you'll get kind of the idea of what we're trying to accomplish there. So, sorry, I just wanted to jump in there.
Before I get on to the next steps here, I want to just build on one last thing Mike said about the uplights. The other thing we've done in other communities, which really gives you some flexibility, is where there are light poles or trees going in, having electrical outlets there. So if you ever want to add lights to the light poles or the trees, you have the ability to do that. It also helps if you have some sort of a festival downtown, and maybe you've got vendors out there and need to plug in for some power. You'll have that at numerous locations too. So again, trying to build a lot of flexibility and add life to the area. So we're going to wrap this up with next steps here. So what we were contracted to do, BSC was contracted to do, was to get this project to preliminary design. So you've seen the elements that are going into the preliminary design drawings that we're wrapping up right now. The next step will then be to go to final design. That gets a set of what we call construction documents, plans and specifications to the town to put this out for public bid. And we're targeting the end of the summer, early fall for that process, which coincides with the design time it's going to take for the utility companies to deal with the undergrounding utilities also. So you can see final design, late summer, fall of 2019, with construction in 2020, thereabouts. So you might start a little earlier. It all depends on when we finalize the plans, when the utility companies finalize their plans, what the weather's like over the winter months. So that's where we're headed from here. I don't know if you want to add anything to that schedule, Mike?
I think it'd be important to talk about funding.
Okay.
You're going to turn that one over to me, right?
I don't know what you want me to say about it.
Okay. Yeah, so how do you fund all of this? How do you make this work? I think we're looking at preliminarily, when you look at the utilities and the street work, we're probably looking at around a $9 to $10 million project. Bill, right? Okay. So $9 to $10 million. We have applied for a grant through the state for $3.5 million. That will cover a good chunk of that. If you notice, we're also talking about coordinating this with utility work, so replacement of water and sewer pipe, potentially sewer pipes as well. We're not necessarily sure if the sewer pipes need to be replaced, but any of you that have driven downtown recently, you see the big water main break that we've had just within the last few weeks at that intersection with Main Street and Homer. So we want to take the opportunity while the ground is open up to replace whatever we need to replace, because it makes no sense to go ahead and just do all of this work and then, a couple of years later say, oh, well, you know what, we should have replaced, water or sewer pipes. So we're trying to coordinate all of that as well. So we'll probably be utilizing a mixture of grant funds, Chapter 90 funds, water and sewer funds, and then general funds to make this all happen. I can tell you my goal is to have this done without the need for a debt exclusion. Looking at some of our debt moving forward and looking at some of our financial forecast, I think that's a possibility, especially if we're looking at funding in the 2020 cycle. but I can't say that for sure yet. But it's certainly on our capital plan, and it's certainly something that's on our radar screen. Again, there's the $3.5 million grant through the state. We're also going to look at other opportunities for grants. That's just one grant program. But that's about all I can think of on the funding arena.
Don't go anywhere, because we're going to take questions in a minute. Sorry, I forgot to mention one more thing. If there are any abutters, property owners here, business owners here, we're very aware of the impacts construction can have on a property or a business owner, and that's something we'd be working with the town to really minimize any impacts to the businesses. There's been a lot of different techniques used in other towns. The bottom line is, you need to have very good communication that's updated on a daily basis, so the businesses and abutters know what's going on, and any customers who want to come downtown know what's going on. But there's a variety of different ways of handling that. So if you don't have anything else, we're here to answer any questions and hear any comments. And they're recording this, so they've asked if you could use the mic.
This is a fairly technical question, but suppose the planning board were writing a decision for somebody who's going to be doing some construction on a new building on Main Street, say on Thursday, and the utilities right now are above ground, but we want them to put in the right utility potential to minimize the disruption with switching to underground. What do we put in our decision?
I'll take a shot at it, because we asked 100 Main Street to do this as well. So they need to go ahead and put in an underground chase for the utilities, just so when we're ready to go underground, that conduit, that piping is all put together, and you can just run it in under there. So 100 Main Street's doing that. That was more of an informal agreement with them. But I would suggest if you have a planning board decision, you would go ahead and write that in.
Thank you.
As well. Brandy. The other thing you can do is you can ask it and I can repeat it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so as a person in my family walks and bikes in downtown Ashland, I'm super excited about the wider sidewalks, the curb extensions, but the best thing I think is the lighting. I mean, you know, you really can't walk in downtown Ashland at night because of the lighting, and I think the lighting's really going to make a huge difference. You couldn't really tell from the drawings how far apart the lighting is and how like what the spacing looks like and how much lighting there's going to be.
Sorry, well, I have to scoot down. We don't know the exact spacing yet, quite honestly. There are different light fixtures that cast a different amount of light depending on their strength. And then the heights also matter on how far the light is dispersed. So what happens is when we get into that part of final design, we work with the lighting suppliers, and we work with the town to say, what level of lighting do you want in downtown? Some communities want a more softer level. It's just kind of a general, I can see around. Others want brighter areas for more of the public safety like you're talking about. We try not to have a whole lot of variation, and especially in a tight area like this, because the drivers need to be used to a certain amount of lighting. But we do that study as part of final design to give the town the light level it needs, and the light level is a combination of what's called the luminaire, or the light bulb, how high that the lights are, and how far apart they're spaced. So the spacing hasn't really been worked out yet, because it needs to take into account a number of different things. But your comment about wanting a certain amount of light level is important for us to hear, because when we get to that point, we're going to have to talk with the town about what level of lighting they do want.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to have different types of lighting to provide a little bit of contrast. So on some of these space-making or place-making elements, like where the benches are and things like that, you might have lights, like can lights or something that are, in the vegetation next to it or something. So it needs to be a mixture of functional and aesthetic as well. Steve? Steve just wanted the exercise to walk up here. He didn't want to.
So you actually pass this around.
That's true.
So Just to kind of piggyback on Preston's comment about underground utilities, and first of all, I think, going underground is by far the most important part of this project, I think. But that being said, the impact of underground utilities on businesses and property owners is a lot different than just sidewalk reconstruction or roadway work. So how does that work mechanically with property owners? And obviously, we're requiring them all to become underground utility fed. So are there programs, are there support, is there financing? How does that work so that, property owners aren't necessarily,
On the hook?
they're going to be on the hook in
Right.
some form or fashion, but, how does that work? Are they on the hook for the whole thing? Is there relief programs and so on?
Yeah. I mean, I can take a shot at it, Bill, because I think I guess the answer, Steve, is that there's a variety of ways that you can do that. Some communities take on the full freight of the cost for property owners to make that transition, to make those changes. Some might have a hybrid program. One thing for sure is that the utilities do not do it, so they don't bear that cost. I don't know if it's one of those situations, Bill, where you can add that surcharge to the electricity bill through a town meeting vote where, that could pay for that. There's a variety of programs, but that's going to be part of the discussion, I think, over the next year.
Hi, Jeff and Bill,
Hi, Rob.
thank you for for this design. I think it's very attractive design. It's exciting to see this moving ahead. You've addressed, I think, a lot of the concerns and feedback that people gave you, and I'd be interested to hear what other folks think of the design. I like the brick look, and I think you took off on some of the issues that people mentioned at the forums. Can we look at that Homer intersection again? Would you mind bringing that up?
I'd break it if I tried it, so.
Just kind of wanted to take a closer look at that. So I'm not in people. So so my question is, we had, as you'll recall, the plan for a multimodal trail coming from Summer Street and crossing there. So did you think about that or incorporate that into the design, or how would that work? Because we had, if you'll recall, some real issues with that crossing and a discussion of one way on Homer Street. So how did you guys kind of deal with that or think about it?
I mean, I will say as part of the Complete Streets program, Phase 1, we will be painting a bike lane specifically on Summer Street. In terms of the transition into Main Street, you can probably talk more about the engineering.
We don't have everything on paper right now, but what will happen is we'll look at this intersection and kind of work with the bike design and make sure that if, cyclists have to take that left, it's a shared use now, or they take that right, it's a shared use. And as far as the Homer, we haven't really coordinated with the committee, the bike committee, or the designers on doing the one-way thing. But that's something that would come out during the design, I think. We have to kind of coordinate with them, understand what their intent is, what's going to work according to the standards, and go from there.
And one of the things, I don't know if we said specifically, but we'll have brand-new signalized intersections. So these are brand-new signals. And I don't know if there's a way you can incorporate, or the more modern signals. Yes, Heather.
Just to, I'm curious and asking, but just to let you know, to incorporate going from a separate bike lane to then a shared use, there are ways to show a transition through the intersection that will make
I'll repeat it.
bikers more visible, but still sharing that space.
Okay.
So that will all be like finalized.
So in the final design, there will be a transition, a visible transition from the bike lane to the sharrowed space, or sharrows, I should say.
There won't be an awkward transition. That
Okay.
will be
It'll be natural.
Okay. I just want to, we are, it's not like the bike committee has solved that problem. It's an issue of how to make that crossing, and the whole issue of whether it should be one way or not is still, so any help you guys can can give in terms of these specifications to incorporate that. And, because I don't want to go to final design without at least trying to address that whole issue. And if the answer is that it's not feasible or there's a major problem, I'd like to know, because we got to figure out what to do. So, thank you for that. The other, can I just look at the Pleasant Street intersection? Can you bring that over? I just wanted to look at, is there a close-up of how the bike lanes would work there? Because that's a major kind of,
You went too far.
yeah, I noticed you had the bike lane going there, and so is there so there's a left turn lane for bicycles there. Is that on Main Street? Is that what I'm seeing there?
First of all,
Do you need the microphone? Yeah.
you may have seen on the first slide, BSC teamed with Tool, another design firm, and Heather's with Tool. She also was a resident, so she's wearing two hats tonight.
Don't mind my outfit, thank you. Again, it will be finalized with, you know, the final design step. However, there will be a sort of mixing zone that will transition in, and then again, you're going into a shared use. If there's any sort of confusion, additional signage too, we found has been really useful in shared use conditions, so.
I think probably as we go through the final design, or in that stage, like you talked about, it'd probably be good to have
Get some of these
input,
details, yeah.
because I don't know the first thing about bicycle. I mean, I know what a bicycle is, but you know, in terms of riding on the road, that's not my thing.
Right, sure. It looks
So-
good. So I just wanted to, I'm pleased with this. I think, just hopefully we'll get some of the details worked out, but I like the overall look, and I hope, eager to hear from what people think. So thank you.
And as Yolanda's coming up, I just want to say one thing about the funding as well. I don't want to think, we're going to already have to make an expenditure to replace things like the signals, the sidewalks. I mean, everybody knows the condition of the sidewalks. The signals, everybody knows the condition of the signals. So we're going to have to make those investments anyway. So we're also looking at this as an opportunity to upgrade. But the net cost, I think, is what we should talk about in the future. Like if we just did regular, replacement, what it's going to cost, and then to do these upgrades, what it's going to cost as well.
So we're live streaming, and we actually got a question from someone at home. They're asking, what has the discussion been about pedestrian safety around the train crossing, and of course, what's the status of the quiet zone as it relates to this transition?
So with the quiet zone, we're in the design phase, the 75% design phase. I'm looking at Sheila because she's really heading up that project.
Transitioning from the 25 to 75.
And we're expecting that to be done by the end of, I'm going to repeat it.
End of the summer, spring.
So the end of the spring 2019 is when that design will be finished. Okay, and in terms of the pedestrian crossing, I don't know if there were anything different than what we have right now.
What we tried to do, obviously it's preliminary design, but what we're trying to do is shorten up the crossing across the tracks as much as possible for pedestrians, create an environment that is got curb and sidewalk and separate, because you've got the driveway against stones, and then you've got people kind of sneaking out of there. You have a gate. So it's going to be in the design phase, the final design, it's going to be a combination of curb, sidewalk, making that distance shorter, having gates that are coordinated with the gates, the main gates. So as Heather said, it's going to be part of this design process, but we are definitely considering pedestrian safety for sure, and making sure that there's no gaps for the folks to get through there. So definitely a consideration.
So Michael, thank you for starting this process, and I know a lot of work has been put in by a lot of people to get it this far, so thank you for that. During the design, is there anything in here that is going to consider signage and billboard for community, just communicating events and different things to the community? So that's something that we've always struggled with. We're sticking wooden signs and medians all over the place, and we're doing things like that. So having something more cohesive would be really helpful.
I mean, it's a separate project, but it's something that's on the Board of Selectmen's radar screen. I'm sorry to tell you that the future is not going to be wooden sandwich boards. For those of you that, yeah, okay. So I think we're looking at a little bit more modern. It's not going to be a roadway construction sign either, that you plug in. Yeah, Joseph. The banner, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's actually, thanks, Bill. No, not downtown Holliston, downtown Ashland. No, one of the things that we also talked about doing is we don't have the opportunity right now to do what a lot of New England towns do, which is hang a banner across town. So you see a lot of those or you see them in Holliston, you see them in other Metro West towns. But we're going to have the opportunity to incorporate poles that are going to match the light fixtures that are going to give us the ability to have something like that. So when Ashland Day happens or when the farmer's market happens, don't worry, Doug, we won't do it for every farmer's market. So Doug looks at this stuff and all he sees is like the extra work. So yeah, so the signage. All right, Aaron.
Just a design question. The brick is just painting on sidewalks and roads, not actual installation, or the buffer between the sidewalk and the road is brick, concrete, asphalt?
It's concrete or resin. It's a concrete or resin material that is stamped, so it's color all the way through. So when it wears, it's still going to be the same color, but it's going to be stamped. On the crosswalk, we looked at things like real brick and stuff like that. That turns out to be a nightmare. It becomes a safety issue because once those things pop up, they become missiles.
I agree. I just wanted to confirm. And
Okay.
the other comment was at the farmer's market, if you could pull that visual up for a sec. Farmer's market / Front Street.
Other way, Bill.
A little more. Oh, are you looking at the very end? Yeah. So as he's going there, I actually think we traded one safety concern to another. By pushing the parking back towards the street, the back end of a car now is right up against a bike lane. And so as a result, inevitably what vehicles do is they back out about 2 or 3 feet and then they look. And as a result, you are asking for trouble with a bike lane directly behind that. Farmers markets, trucks, whatever. I understand having a sidewalk along the farmers market, so you have people exiting. But even though you went from a 25-foot long parking area, that extra 5 or 6 feet is really important for the bicyclists. It's an extra safe space for that car to back up and not go directly into the bike lane. By pushing the parking back 5 feet, you've now put the 3 or 4 feet that the car's going to back up right in the bike lane. And it's just going to make it very challenging for cyclists there. I don't know if you go with angled parking. I don't know if you get rid of that sidewalk, but you've traded one safety concern for another, which is a lot more dangerous. I will not bike in that bike lane ever. I will bike in the middle of the road because I will not trust that cars will look. They'll go 3 or 4 feet, they'll hit me, and then they'll look.
I mean, I think it's a good point and something that you would take into consideration in the design. But I think one of the things that we're trying to balance, Aaron, is the fact that you've got a very popular farmer's market, right? Very energetic farmer's market that happens 13, 18 Saturdays? 19, excuse me. 19 Saturdays out of the year. And do you design a whole road on something that happens 19 days a year? And I don't know if the answer is yes or no. I'm sure there's ways that you can work around it, but.
I just want to say it's a very good point, and the sidewalk on the, we'll call it the lawn side, the farmer's market side, is not dependent upon moving those spaces back. We can keep those spaces exactly where they are and just move the sidewalk into the area that's now lawn, so we can accommodate both.
But I think it's important to have that extra length.
Yeah, I can see that. Heather, Joe, comment on that?
Also, going into final design, again, I work for Tool Design, and we specialize in bike and pedestrian accommodations. We understand that this is not your ideal situation. However, going into final design, we can talk about, angle, push, as Jeff said, pushing it up. You can also talk about doing a strip of, a lot of times we do the green conflict zone paint. There are definitely ways to make bicyclists more aware. And even if that is you personally driving into the travel lane for that short amount of time, I think that overall, the message that we're sending, accommodating bicyclists, it is strong here. And we can definitely finalize a lot of these design aspects to make more bicyclists comfortable going forward.
Talk a little bit about angle versus straight out. Why is straight out versus angle?
Angled a lot of times, and I'm not a specialist with parking, so please, as far as angled versus straight in. But angle, you are more limited just with the pulling in, pulling out aspect of it. So you are limiting, remember, because realistically we're talking about the farmer market traffic, and you're limiting all that traffic coming from the east, coming in with that back-end parking.
So to go to your point about only 19 days during the year, hopefully, and I think it's important that we address the multimodal activity there, because hopefully we use that space for a lot more than just 19
I hope so.
events during a year. So, it's a perfect public space for a variety of things.
With the new traffic signals, I haven't seen any signals in this area that actually pick up bicycles when waiting for a light if there aren't cars. Will the new signals take those into account?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. There are, we're going away with the pavement detection, so we're going to be using camera detection. So cameras can detect pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars. And they also have cameras that are 360 degree, so they can be in the middle of the intersection and pick everything up and be able to give them time. So, yeah.
I have a question about how, and it might be out of this area, but our infamous culvert, if that has had any thought or how that would be integrated as well, because that could cause problems if we move the police and fire, we still have potential flooding.
Well, I mean, we're fortunate enough that we've cameraed the culvert and know that, for those of you that don't know, just as some background, there is a culvert system that takes stormwater from Magunko Hill and areas to the west, and it takes it on down through downtown, and it actually takes almost a 90-degree turn at the library and goes into the Sudbury River. So one of the things that we were concerned about when the apartments were proposed on Magunko Hill was the amount of stormwater that was going to increase, or the amount of increase on the culvert system itself, because there were some concerns and some thoughts that it might back up. So we went ahead and we did some analysis and everything like that. I think if we have the opportunity to make the material more consistent, because right now it's a mixture of 8-inch pipe, 12-inch pipe, 4-inch box, or 4-foot box, I should say, we would use that opportunity while the ground's open to make it consistent. Where we see more of where the backup happens is on that 90-degree turn, which is in front of the library, not necessarily on Front Street, but more on Concord Street. Cliff, you were here when it was built, so it was. So, does that answer your question, Kate? Okay.
do you have an estimate for how long the entire project will take from groundbreaking to finishing?
How long I want it to take or how realistic? I,
Realistic.
I'm usually aggressive on this and I end up paying for it.
You can be the bearer of the bad news, but depend on remember what you said. You had an estimate.
The challenge is going to be the utility company. So you take away Eversource and the undergrounding, you're probably looking at a timeline of 12 to 14 months. And that would be, a bulk of the work will be done in the first 8 months. And then after that, it's just landscaping and minor things that happen after that. I hope that makes you feel better. But with the utility company, there's just that bit of challenge there. So, however, in our timeline, we talk about, that's what 2019 is going to be for. 2019 is to reach out to coordinate with the utility companies because there's a lot of coordination that they won't do. And so the town has to step up and get the other utility companies involved and the owners, the residential owners and the business owners to have them all team together to make those connections. So because they've got to install all the infrastructure first before they can detach things from poles and make connections underground from homes, and so that's the tricky part. But the roadway stuff, a bulk of it's going to be in the first 6 to 8 months. Then after that, it's just minor things that have to happen, so.
Okay, thank you.
You told me 6 to 8 weeks. No, I just, yeah, I mean, that's one thing I think we forget about is we think utility companies, we think of Eversource, but there's also Comcast and Verizon that we have to coordinate with. We're actually very fortunate in that our legislative delegation is very interested in this project as well. And so they are working with us to make sure that this coordination happens well. We actually had a meeting with Eversource on Friday, and Representative Lewis and a representative from Senator Spilka's office was there as well, because they take great interest in this. Any other questions? All right. Well, I hope you like it. I hope you're excited about it. I know it's kind of a gloomy night and a little chilly, but thank you all. I've seen all of you at previous forums, or if you've asked questions, you've contributed to help make this what it is today and help put us on the path to getting this done. This is going to be a transformative project, make no mistake about it. And like I said at the beginning, we're already starting to see the benefits of people and companies and businesses wanting to make investments in our downtown, partially because we're willing to make this investment ourselves. So I want to thank you again, and we will put all of this up on the Co-Urbanize site, so everybody will have those renderings. We'll put it on Facebook, social media, get the word out, and we look forward to finishing up the final design and breaking ground in 2019 or 2020. So thank you.